TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, terror continues to plague Israel with repeated shooting attacks throughout Judea and Samaria, claiming a 14th victim in the month of February alone. A dangerous uptick in attacks by Israeli settlers directed toward IDF forces is raising concerns among Israel's defense establishment. The United States reiterates its call upon Israel and the Palestinian Authority to adhere to the understandings reached during the Aqaba Summit. Tensions continue to simmer throughout the West Bank districts of Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley, with repeated acts of nationalistically motivated terror, as well as violent riots plaguing the territories. Merely one day after two Israeli brothers were murdered near the town of Huara, south of Nablus, multiple shooting attacks were reported yesterday evening, in which terrorists targeted Israeli civilians driving on Route 90 east of the Palestinian city of Jericho. According to the IDF spokesperson's unit, which conducted an inquiry of the attacks, it was revealed that terrorists initially opened fire toward an Israeli vehicle on Route 90, adjacent to the Mulnevo junction. As a result, a 27-year-old dual American-Israeli national, Elan Ganeles, sustained fatal injuries. Subsequently, the terrorists fled in the direction of Bet HaArava junction, where they once again opened fire toward an Israeli vehicle. Thankfully, no injuries were reported in that particular incident. Immediately thereafter, they continued driving in the direction of Jericho while opening fire at another vehicle driving in the same direction. Nevertheless, while the car was struck, no injuries were thankfully reported. Ultimately, before arriving to Jericho City, the terrorists abandoned their vehicle, which was set ablaze. Meanwhile, the Israeli Defense Establishment launched a manhunt after the terrorists, who remain at large. It is important to know that Elan Ganeles, who was murdered by the abhorrent terrorists while visiting Israel for the purpose of attending a wedding, was the 14th Israeli victim of terror during the month of February alone. Meanwhile, additional shooting attacks were reported throughout Judea and Samaria overnight. One such attack was directed at a vehicle driven by a woman while her children were seated behind her. And while the car was struck by 4 bullets, thankfully, no injuries were reported. Meanwhile, Israeli settlers attacked IDF soldiers operating near the Israeli community of Shavei Shomron. According to the IDF spokesperson's unit, 2 Israeli civilians were spotted hurling rocks towards Palestinian vehicles adjacent to the community of Rimonim. The commanding officer of the Binyamin Regional Brigade, who was passing by the area, approached the rock hurlers in order to disperse them. As a result, the 2 Israeli assailants allegedly attacked the officer before border police forces arrived at the scene and detained the 2 suspects. Earlier, several Israeli civilians hurled rocks also toward IDF soldiers at the Gaz junction in Samaria. In tandem, 1 Israeli civilian attempted to ram his vehicle into an IDF officer in that same area. Forces that were stationed in the area responded by opening fire at the vehicle's tire, yet the Israeli assailant managed to flee the scene. In response to the uptick of violence by Israeli settlers directed at IDF soldiers in Judea and Samaria, the IDF published a condemnation highlighting the absurdity of Israelis attacking IDF troops while they operate to preserve the security, law, and order in Judea and Samaria. Moreover, the IDF pledged to operate together with law enforcement agencies in order to hold those who violate the law accountable. According to a senior security official, however, who spoke to TV7 on condition of anonymity, the phenomenon of attacks directed at Israeli forces by a radical group of Israeli residents of Judea and Samaria is not new. The official explained that these attacks intensified in recent weeks. Moreover, the outrageous attacks directed at IDF troops are believed to be the result of efforts to thwart recent attacks by dozens of radical Jewish settlers against Arab Palestinians, as was displayed in the town of Huara on Sunday. Meanwhile, Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, who represents many of the most radical elements within the predominantly peaceful settler community in Jude and Samaria, and who has been convicted of nationalistically motivated terror in his not-too-distant past, sought to alleviate tensions on the ground by calling upon all of his followers not to take the law into their own hands.
אני מבין את התחושות הקשות, אבל לא זו הדרך, אנחנו לא לוקחים את החוק לידיים. ממשלת ישראל, מדינת ישראל, צה"ל, כוחות הביטחון, הם אלה שצריכים לקטוש את האויבים שלנו.
While Minister Ben-Gvir vocally seeks to alleviate tensions on the ground, while the Israeli security establishment is pursuing the abhorrent terrorists who were responsible for the repeated deadly attacks against Israelis in recent days, thousands of Israeli mourners attended a funeral in Jerusalem for the two Israeli brothers who were brutally murdered in the shooting attack on Sunday.
שני אהובים, בניי חביביי, ההולכים בדרך השם, על אלה אני בוכייה, איני יורדה מים, שבר וחברנו, אין לנו מנחם.
Meanwhile, in Washington, the U.S. State Department once again voiced concern by the continuing violence in Israel and the West Bank, urging both the Israelis and the Palestinian Authority to do everything possible to alleviate tensions.
The United States is extremely concerned by the events of this weekend and the continuing violence in Israel and the West Bank. As we noted yesterday, we condemn the horrific killing of two Israeli brothers near Nablus and the killing today of an Israeli near Jericho, who we understand was also an American citizen. We express our deepest condolences to all of the victims' families and their loved ones. We also condemn the wide-scale, indiscriminate violence by settlers against Palestinian civilians following the killing. The attacks reportedly led to the death of one Palestinian man, more than 300 residents injured, 4 seriously, and the torching of an estimated 30 Palestinian homes and cars. These actions are completely unacceptable. The United States extends its deepest condolences to those affected by this violence.
Price went on to thank the Israeli leadership for condemning the Israeli violence against Palestinians, all the while stressing the need to follow up on the commitments made by Israel and the Palestinian Authority in Aqaba over the weekend.
We appreciate Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Herzog's statements calling for a cessation of vigilante violence. We expect the Israeli government to ensure full accountability and legal prosecution of those responsible for these attacks, in addition to compensation for the lost homes and property. Accountability and justice should be pursued with equal rigor in all cases of extremist violence, and equal resources dedicated to prevent such attacks and bring those responsible to justice. These events underscore the fragility of the situation in the West Bank and the urgent need for increased cooperation to prevent further violence. That is exactly why the United States joined Israel, the Palestinians, Jordan, and Egypt in Aqaba. It is imperative that Israel and the Palestinians work together to de-escalate tensions and to restore calm. The United States and our regional partners will continue to work with the parties to advance the commitments made in Aqaba, and in the meantime, we call on everyone to refrain from actions and rhetoric that further inflame tensions. As we've said repeatedly, Israelis and Palestinians equally deserve to live in safety and security.
It is important to re-emphasize that according to a senior Israeli official who spoke to TV7 about the conclusions of the Aqaba Summit, understandings have been reached between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. He said that among other matters, it was agreed to establish a joint committee that would be tasked with reviewing renewed security coordination between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. Moreover, the senior Israeli official also confirmed that Jerusalem had pledged to make no new decisions relating to Israeli construction in Jude and Samaria for the next 4 to 6 months. The Israeli pledge was apparently made in exchange for the Palestinian Authority's commitment to take responsibility for fighting terrorism in the territories under its control. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. If you're blessed by our productions and would like to help sustain TV7 Israel's ongoing operations, which are exclusively donation-based, please consider making a financial contribution. you can do so at www.tv7israelnews.com. Separately, we would like to encourage you, pray for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, as well as for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time.